Hi, my name is Ku Vang, and I want to share a story from back in 1979 when I was 24 years old. At that time, I was a teacher in Laos. Every day after teaching, I walked home, and on my way, I would always come across a beautiful woman named Nali. One day, as I was walking home, I noticed Nali carrying some heavy logs. I offered to help her, and she gladly accepted. As we walked, she introduced herself with a sweet voice and a nice attitude. I learned that she was from a very poor family. After that day, whenever I finished teaching, I would come across Nali, and we started walking home together. One day, I decided to ask her out, and she became my girlfriend. The challenge was that I was quite poor, and I couldn't buy anything special for her. As our relationship grew, I realized Nali's birthday was approaching. Determined to make it special, I came up with a plan. I started picking up cans around the streets to earn a little extra money. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. On her birthday, I took Nali out for dinner with the money I earned from collecting cans. It might not have been a fancy meal, but we enjoyed each other's company. Nali appreciated the effort I put into making her day memorable, despite the financial struggles. Our love story began, and through the challenges, we found happiness in each other's company. It taught me that love is not about material things, but about the genuine care and effort we put into making someone feel special. In 1985, I decided to make her my wife. It was the happiest time of my life. We loved each other so much, even though we were poor, but love was our wealth, and it made everything seem all right. We didn't have much, and in 1994, we found out we couldn't have kids. It was a tough blow, but we were lucky to get a chance to move and live in the USA. We started in a small, one-bedroom apartment. I worked hard, selling medicine door to door and picking beans on a farm full-time. Every morning I walk 4 miles to the farm while my wife takes the bus to school every day. Our love kept us going, even when things were tough. As the years passed, my wife got a good job in an office. Her hard work paid off, and eventually, she became a supervisor. I was proud of her, and seeing her achievements made all the hard work worthwhile. But things changed. Her attitude started to shift. She began complaining about getting dirty when she visited the farm with me. She said mean things about my clothes, and urged me to do better in life. I noticed she changed a lot, dressing differently and showing more than she used to. As time went on, she started disappearing for 2 or 3 days, always blaming her job. It hurt to see her changing, not just in appearance, but in how she treated me. I missed the times when she made my life brighter after a hard day on the farm. I didn't understand why she had to be so distant, and her words became sharper. She'd make fun of me and act like I wasn't good enough. It was tough to see the woman I loved acting this way. I held on, hoping things would get better. But deep down, I knew something had shifted in our relationship. Love, once the foundation of our happiness, seemed to be slipping away. I just wanted her to be happy again, and I would do anything to make that happen. One day, I left the farm and suddenly remembered it was her birthday. Oh no, I thought. I've been saving money for something special for her. A beautiful gold necklace. So even though I was wearing torn clothes like a homeless person after working on the farm, I decided to head to the nearby mall to get her the perfect gift. I was so excited about the surprise that I didn't even change out of my farm clothes. I rushed to the mall, and when I arrived, it was huge and super fancy. I felt a bit embarrassed, walking around in my torn clothes among all these well-dressed people. But I was determined to get that necklace. I hurried to a store that sold gold, and wow, the necklaces on display were stunning. I quickly found the perfect one, and without thinking too much, paid $3,000 for it. The necklace sparkled in its case, and I knew she would love it. Even though I felt out of place in the fancy mall, I left with a huge smile on my face, imagining the joy on her face when she opened the present. It was a crazy adventure, but it was all worth it for her special day. As I'm about to leave the mall, My eyes catch sight of the food court. It's bustling with people enjoying their meals, and as I glance over, I see a familiar face, my wife. To my surprise, she's sitting next to a man in a sharp suit. Confused and anxious, I hide in a corner like a homeless person, feeling my heart drop into my stomach. I can't believe what I'm seeing. They're holding hands and even sharing kisses. My mind races, trying to make sense of the scene unfolding before me. Questions flood my thoughts. Is this a misunderstanding? Am I misinterpreting what I'm seeing? As I observe them, I can't ignore the ache in my chest. The person I thought I knew so well, the woman I married, is now intimately connected with someone else. I feel like I've been punched in the gut and my emotions are a chaotic mess. Despite the pain, a strange determination washes over me. I decide I need to confront the situation head on. Gathering every ounce of courage, I step out of my hiding spot and approach them. My legs feel heavy and my palms are sweaty, but I need answers. I tapped her shoulder gently from behind, and when she turned around to look at me, her eyes widened in surprise and fear. My voice, softly trembling, broke the silence. "Honey, what are you doing here?" She stared at me for a moment, shocked to see me there. After a pause, she told me to go home and promised to explain everything in a bit. Confused and hurt, I took off the ring from my finger, holding it in my hand. As I looked at her, I began to speak, my words heavy with sadness. "I'm no one," I said, my voice barely audible. "I have no education, just a simple person from a poor background, always dirty from working on the farm." Tears welled up in my eyes as she listened, and a pained expression crossed her face. She insisted that I go home and wait for her. I left, my heart heavy with the weight of the sad truths I had just shared. The journey back home felt longer than usual. Thoughts swirled in my mind, wondering why things had changed so much. I couldn't shake off the feeling of loneliness and despair. The house, once filled with warmth, now seemed cold and empty. I packed some of my things into an old suitcase, and it felt like I was carrying the weight of our memories along with them. The room echoed with the silence of a love that had slowly faded away. As I folded clothes and gathered belongings, I couldn't help but recall the times when we had nothing but each other. I remembered the days when our pockets were empty, but our hearts were full of hope. We were poor, but we were rich in love. Those were the times when we faced life's struggles hand in hand, finding joy in the little things that money couldn't buy. It seemed like it was just yesterday when we laughed through the tough times, promising to stick together no matter what. As I sorted through old photographs, each image brought back a flood of emotions. I saw us smiling in the face of adversity, holding each other close during the storms of life. I pictured her, the same woman who stood by my side when we had nothing but dreams and each other's love. But somewhere along the way, things changed. The laughter faded, and the warmth between us turned cold. It was a sadness that crept into our lives, and I found myself holding on to memories that felt like they belonged to another time. With a heavy heart, I closed the suitcase and left our shared space, the echoes of our past ringing in my ears. I needed time to breathe to understand what had gone wrong. So I checked into a hotel for a week, surrounded by the emptiness that mirrored the void in my heart. During those lonely nights, I reflected on the love we once had and the distance that had grown between us. The walls of the hotel room seemed to absorb my tears as I questioned the decisions that led us here. Finally, I mustered the courage to start over. I found myself a small apartment, a place to rebuild and rediscover who I was without the weight of fading love. The city outside my window felt both unfamiliar and full of possibilities. Leaving her was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but I knew it was time to let go. In the quiet corners of my new home, I hoped to find solace and maybe, just maybe, a chance at happiness once again. So there I was, packing my bags and getting ready to move out. My friend dropped a bombshell on me, saying that as soon as I left, my wife and her new boyfriend would swoop in to take over my place. It felt like a punch to the gut, and little did I know that prediction would soon become a reality. Weeks later, the papers were signed, and we were officially divorced. It hurt, but looking back, I realized something important. I was lucky we never had kids together. If we did, they would have been stuck in the middle of this messy situation. Time passed, and slowly but surely, I started to get over her. It wasn't easy, but I focused on moving forward. 6 months later, life took an unexpected turn. I met someone new, someone incredible. She didn't care that I wasn't rich. What she saw in me was my big heart. We connected on a level I hadn't experienced before. She accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. It felt like a breath of fresh air after the storm I had been through. As we got to know each other, I realized that this new chapter in my life was a blessing in disguise. The pain from the past began to fade, and I found happiness in the most unexpected place, with someone who appreciated me for being me. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I managed to hit it out of the park, and now I was building a new life with someone who truly cared. Years have gone by, and my new wife and I have a beautiful daughter. Life seemed to be moving forward smoothly until one unexpected evening. There was a sudden knock on our door, and when I opened it, I was shocked to see my ex-wife standing there. She was crying and pleading for me to take her back. Her emotions were intense, and she was making a lot of noise. Our concerned neighbor called the police to help calm things down. When the police arrived, they had to ask her to leave our place. It was a difficult and uncomfortable situation, but we knew we had to prioritize the peace and well-being of our new family. Unfortunately, this wasn't the end of it. In the following days, she would return and knock on our door persistently. However, we decided to ignore her, hoping that she would eventually understand and move on. Sometimes she would sit on the front porch for hours, waiting. It was a challenging time for us, but we remained firm in our decision to protect the stability of our new family life. Despite the difficulties, we focused on providing a loving and secure environment for our daughter. And over time, the disturbances from my ex-wife became less frequent. Our commitment to each other and our child helped us navigate through this challenging chapter, and we continued building a happy life together. My cousins up in Alaska came through for me big time. They hooked me up with a really good job, the kind that pays well and opens doors for a better future. So my wife and I decided to pack up and start a new chapter of our lives up there. One day, as the big move approached, my wife and I sat down to talk about it. We weighed the pros and cons, considered the opportunities, and decided that taking this chance was the right move for our family. We were ready for a fresh start. The day finally came, and we found ourselves at the airport, eagerly waiting for our flight. It was a mix of excitement and nervousness. My wife and our little daughter were with me in the lobby, and we were going through the motions of checking in and waiting for our boarding time. Then, out of nowhere, I heard my name being called loudly. I turned around, and to my surprise, there was my ex-wife, Nali. She rushed towards me and right there in the airport lobby, dropped to her knees and started crying. It was unexpected and caught me off guard. My wife, noticing the situation, turned to me and said, "You should go talk to her. Let her know it's okay and that you've moved on." I approached Nali, and she was visibly upset. I tried my best to reassure her, explaining that I was starting a new chapter in my life with my wife and daughter. As I walked toward her, the weight of sadness hung heavy in the air. The room was dimly lit, and memories of happier times seemed like distant echoes. She looked at me with questioning eyes, a mix of confusion and heartache. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I could see hers reflecting the same pain. It felt like we were both drowning in unsaid sadness. A desperate feeling pushed me to grab her hand, and for a brief moment we clung to each other, desperately trying to hold on to the fading connection that was about to be torn apart. "Why do you have to go?" she asked, her voice filled with a shaky sadness. Memories flooded my mind. "Remember when we lived in Laos, struggling through tough times, having nothing but each other? You were always by my side, telling me that someday life would get better. We faced everything together. You promised we'd be together forever, no matter what. Trying to respond, words got stuck in my throat. The harsh reality hit me like a relentless wave. I finally spoke, the weight of my admission hanging heavily in the air. I can't be there for you anymore. I can't take care of you when you're sick or support you like I used to. You're on your own now. I didn't blame you for the mistakes that strained our relationship. My voice broke as I continued. You have to find someone who will treat you right, someone who will love you forever, not a poor farmer like me. It won't be easy, but you deserve happiness, even if I can't be the one to give it to you. Thank you for being a good, lovely wife to me in this lifetime, even though our happy times only lasted for a short while. You inspired me to keep our love strong, even though we didn't have kids like others. I didn't care, as long as you were by my side. But that's all in the past now. Thank you, Nali, for the good times we had as a husband and wife in this world. You will always be in my heart. My eyes fell to the ground, and it seemed like the room was full of the echoes of unsaid goodbyes. I reached out to gently wipe away a tear from her cheek, a quiet goodbye to a love that circumstances had ripped apart. Standing up, my heart weighed down with a decision that would change both our lives. As I walked away, it was time for us to get on our plane. Turning around for one last glance, there she sat, in the same spot, tears streaming down her face with her head bowed. It crushed me to see her like that. My wife noticed my worry and gave me a comforting hug. She told me not to stress too much. We have to go, but everything will be okay, she reassured me. The airport was busy, and the loudspeaker announced our final boarding call. I took a deep breath and wiped away a tear. Saying goodbye is never easy, especially when you see someone you've already spent half of your life with in pain and crying alone. It hurts deep inside, knowing you can't fix it. Dear Nali, I'm writing to you, hoping you can take a moment to read these words. My heart feels so heavy as I put pen to paper, weighed down by the memories that haunt me and the pain of a bond that's now shattered. Back when we struggled and had next to nothing, you were my everything. You stood strong beside me through the toughest times, facing life's challenges together. Those were the days when we had each other's backs, and I hold on to those moments dearly. We might have been poor, but the love and support we shared made us feel rich. Now it's tough for me to understand what went wrong between us. I never imagined you would betray our marriage, and the thought hurts deeply. I can't fathom how we reached this point. It's painful to see the one who used to support me through everything become the source of such agony. Despite it all, I truly hope you find happiness with your future husband. Love is supposed to be beautiful, and I wish for you to build a life full of joy and fulfillment together. I wouldn't want anyone to feel the heartache I'm going through, so I sincerely hope you learn from our past and nurture a relationship based on trust and loyalty. Thank you for being a wonderful, loving wife to me in this one lifetime we had together. Take care of yourself, Nali. Yours sadly, Kuvang.